All right, so the more drastic it is from your current reality, the more shifts will be required, the more surrender will be required, the more isolation will be required. And some of it you can choose, like I mentioned in the last video, the the input, right? It was music for me that I just had a lot of revelations about it and a lot of insights, and I stopped listening to pop music. And really, for the most part, if I could, anything that was um, that had auto tune or had been overproduced. Um, so there was some like classic stuff in there, but only before auto tune. And then it was the imagery that you know, I realized my energy was different based on what I was looking at. And if I'm doing anything, it has a purpose. So my energy, it didn't, it wasn't the same when I would change what I was doing. But when I changed what I was looking at, that really had a big impact on me because I knew I could feel it. I could feel denser if I was looking at things that were trauma, drama, um, that were, this is YouTube, so I'm not sure what I can say yet, that were overly romantic, I'll say, extremely romantic. Um, Anything, you know, and it didn't have to be like all flowers and butterflies, but when it was overtly violent or overtly romanticized, it made me feel heavy and it made me feel tired. And so then, you know, there's a whole wormhole that I could go into here, but again, I don't think YouTube is the place for that. Maybe Instagram. Anyway, I want everybody who ever runs across any of this to be able to benefit from it. So I'm always going to do my best to speak and share in a way that is respectful to all people, religions, race, color, creed, um, all the ways that they identify themselves. Human experience is unique to you and your perspectives and your filters and your experiences that you've had in life. So, remember that. And, remember that internally and externally. Um, but anyway, I felt really dense. And so then I was like, I realized, okay, even films, still images, things on the internet. I never was a big doom scroller. I'm not like obsessive being on my phone. Um, but even that, um, you know, it was not only a distraction, but it was like taking my energy away without my choice because you just scroll and the things come up, right? So I deleted all my Instagram and Facebook, and um, I've been on Facebook like OG Facebook. So that helped me a lot to discern what was coming in and to see it through filters that I knew were healthy. I mean, I even was, I never drank like a ton of soda, but I'd have one often with dinner, and I stopped that. Um, I was eating really, really healthy and taking really good care of myself. No alcohol, no smoking, nothing, nothing. I mean, just healthy, going to the gym, like really limiting everything that I could. And really like sort of starting over, like starting myself over, but in a safe environment because I was still living in my home I'd had for a while. I still had my partner, and this was at the time that I was like changing my business. And so it made it a lot easier to do those things because all those others were in place. And so then as I go from that place and I go outward, in life from that moment in all directions, you're living everything through a new perspective and a new filter. And you see everything in a different way, and you've got new boundaries, and so then another thing is called to be surrendered, and another thing, and another thing. And I guess that you could stop along the way and at some point choose, like, okay, I'm not doing this part. But my belief and my experience in life have been that if you resist it, like, you can keep it going, but it will continue to deteriorate in such a way that it'll become an untenable situation, whatever it is, um, until you move away from it. So I'm going to have some grape juice. This is not wine. It's grape juice. Um, and so you just have to face whatever it is, whatever you don't want to face or whatever you don't want to deal with, and as you grow and you face that experience and you come out of it different and slightly more awakened, hopefully, then it that in most of life you just have one of those moments, like every once in a while. And there's a balance between which ones you face and you're like, I'm out of this job, or, oh, I'm leaving this person, and which ones you get fired from or um, broken up with from your lover. Um, and I don't recommend to anyone to like leave early. You know, I've always had a problem with knowing when to like overcome the challenge and when, you know, the cow is ready for, you know, I better not say that. When the plants are ready for harvest, um, when you should just walk away from something, or when you should just keep going and keep going and keep going. Now, if it keeps getting worse, that's obvious that you shouldn't keep going. If they don't get better, in my opinion, that's also obvious that you shouldn't keep going. For sure, if they get worse, you shouldn't keep going. And if you can overcome whatever you're being faced with, but if it's not something you have any control over or any ability, to influence, which is usually when it comes to another person, then you have to let it go. However, you know, some people are really remarkable, and some people do the work that's required. Some people do change. For many years, my partner, any conflict that we had, we would, have our conflict in the way that we had it, and then talk sensibly, which I think a lot of people do, And then, excuse me, confirmation verb, as the tarot girlies say. Um, and then, whatever changes were necessary to sustain that behavior were made. So when somebody does the work for you, like that's a really beautiful thing. And that's the kind of relationship you want. Somebody that works harder to be a good partner for you, and to tailor the way they are with you around what is best for you. Um, I think it's really special, and that's love. Like that's when you love somebody romantically, that you will make these, and not even like it's. I mean, there is change, and it is it is about like really important core things, but that if you don't like violence, they don't try to you know take you to or invite you out to dinner in a violent film, just like these little things that like show caring and show like, that they will do the work to remember and to treat you well. But, this could really be anything. It could be your job, it could be your home, it could be family, or, in my case, like it could be every single one. It could be everything. It could be everything in your entire reality that, you know, even here, I've been here a few weeks, and again, I wish I'd have made more videos about it, but I made a friend and we spent a lot of time together, like as much time as I maybe would have spent like in the last year with friends, um like this sort of like fast forward, um hang out a lot. And then they left Vietnam for several weeks, and so it's like um it's like being isolated again, like as this other phase has like seen its day and seen the light and been experienced. And I feel like a lot of things are really really shifting and changing, but it's sort of like out of my perception. It's things that when I look back I'll well understand, but in this in between time it feels really scary. It feels really, really scary, because my mind, it doesn't like it's not anxiety riddled anymore. Which, if you're suffering from anxiety and you are going through these things, like I know, like I spent most of my life with high anxiety and dealing with depression, and it just exacerbates everything. It's like pouring salt on a wound, So I really know how you feel and what it's like, and um, if I had both of those still and all of this, then this year, the last year, would have been hell. For me, we're still in the year of the snake. The Lunar New Year is about 1 month and 2 days away. So I'm I'm still in this snake and this like shedding, and in this time, as I mentioned in the last video also, of like I think it was the last video, of all of the things that I know and have learned through all my life and experience and witnessed, they're all being called on now. Like, you've written your own rule book, and then here's the entire rule book, like everything coming up, everything, like, okay, you're doing this according to my own belief system, my own principles, and everything being tested one after the other. And then, going on faith of what, I've only had like the tiniest glimpse, maybe like last March or April. Um, and then one recently, the tiniest glimpse. I'm not trying to show you how tiny. The tiniest, like that tiny, the tiniest glimpse that it's working. Um, and no glimpse since then. But, it's been months that there had been any sign at all that anything that I had envisioned and written about, done the mirror work on, and manifested, there's the tiniest glimpse that any of it was working. So I'm glad for that. And I mean like a real glimpse, right? Versus I'm not saying no good things have happened. It has been a lot of surrender, a lot of loss, a lot of like, you know, tragedy and a lot of tears. I have shed a lot of tears. And I mean, imagine anything in your life and it's gone, Even this summer I wasn't talking to anyone, right? So I isolated myself from the few friends I have. I have a friend in London that we've been friends for it is 20 years this year. Yeah, 20 years. And like, we've drifted and come back, but like for no other reason other than like life got busy and I've been living all over the world. So she has a family. Um, we've been friends for 20 years. I have a friend in Kuwait, and we have been friends since 2012. So that's 14 years this year. And another in Kuwait that we've been friends since 2013. So that is 13 years this year. And so I have these three people that I message with and talk to um, because I deleted my Facebook and my Instagram and just got rid of like all these connections that were like people, everybody from all over the world and people, from high school, people that used to work on my teams, people that I used to work for, people I used to work with, people I've met all over the world, and it was like I didn't want to discern and like block and delete certain people. I just needed to isolate myself from anybody like really paying attention or tracking me or whatever. Not good, not bad. I needed to just be isolated. I needed to start, as like a seed again and replant myself because, you know, where my tree had grown, it was not working, you know? So that's just back to how much surrender is required. So if you're going through any of this stuff, um, job loss, home loss, big life changes, it could be like a health thing, which drink lots of water, people, by the way, and, give thanks to your water, be grateful, say something a little bit nice to it. Um, um, a breakup, moving to a new place, that's the other thing about like trauma is that it can be something you chose. Like you can have trauma from what you want and the changes required from it. You can have secondary trauma, you know, as something you wanted requires a change that is acceptable to you, but it's still a big or dramatic or painful change. So it's one thing, and I'm glad I remembered to say this, that I have to tell myself all the time is that you are in trauma. You're surviving trauma right now. Your best is different. you really, on a scale, because I don't ever say, oh, I had a bad day, you know? You don't feel good in the moment, try to tell yourself, okay, it's a bad minute, If it lasts an hour, it's been a bad hour versus, allowing the whole day to unfold that way. But I'm very strict on myself. I'm very hard on myself. And I have to remind myself that you're going through trauma and you're not going through, one of the top three most stressful things that human beings go through, which they are divorce, job loss, and moving. You're going through not, the top nine. And not only that, but like you're moving and moving and moving, because I came here and then I'm in one place, I go to another place. That day, 4 hours later, I went to another place. I was there for a minute, then I'm here. And each time, you know, it's a big shock to the system because the system has been in survival mode so long. And so what I mean to say with this is that if you are going through multiple things like I am, you have to remind yourself of that. And it's not to say you're surviving trauma because you want to speak, believe, and think, that you're learning from it and you're healing. It's not an always positive, sunshine all the time attitude. It's an acceptance and honor of this is this bites. This reality is happening and I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It's hard to face, whatever. Um, but it's not a victimization. It's not negative to say what's true. It's negative to harp on it and to spiral down a thought pattern or a thought path or like go through this perspective of what if this and what if that in the future and all that. So my point was that you have to give yourself more grace than you think that you should. And you if you're like me, you've learned enough to know not to like freak out and not to be like crying hysterically on the phone with your friends saying, what am I gonna do? I'm so scared. Not you might say it in conversation, you might shed a tear or two, and you might move on versus dwelling on it and feeding like energy into it. Because you do have to honor what is. And if you deny it, if you pretend you're not feeling what you're feeling, then it's going to get worse. And you can like bury it down and pretend it's not there, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And then, you know, it's going to burst out either way, whether you choose to take the lid off and let it breathe at some point, or you just keep it pressed down and the barrel blows out the sides. It's going to come out because that's the whole point of us being here, is to learn and grow and develop and remember, who we really are, where we really come from, and the power that we have over crafting and creating our reality in a way that is built around love and kindness and empathy and the understanding that we are not separate from each other. We are not separate from the animal. We are not separate from the moss. We are not separate from the earth. All of us are living symbiotically, symbiotically, I think, together. And we are all connected to the light. And that's the key, is that We are beings of light. We get life from the light, from the sun. Our food gets into existence from the sun. It's all the Father to the Son to the life. So I'm not going to get into right now who cannot feed off the light, and that that's why the world is the way that it is, because we, the beings of light, the human beings, the light workers, all of us are not the only like species here and the only beings here. So that's a conversation for way down the road because we still need to catch up. So I'm going to end this video for now because these two videos kind of go together. I think they're a bit long. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.